Can you hear me?
Yes, John, I can hear you.
Yeah.
How are you?
Just making sure it's all working.
Good deal. We still have about a minute or so. I'm waiting for the few in the waiting room to make their admittance. I'm going to give it about another 30 seconds before we get started this evening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have 7:30 on my watch and there is nobody waiting in the waiting room. So I'm going to go ahead and get this July 14th, 2020 City Council meeting call to order. It is now 7:30. And if you would all just take a moment here, remain muted while I engage in the Pledge of Allegiance for us. I don't have a picture of the flag up again, I apologize, but I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now with that, if we could give the clerk a moment as everyone unmutes so that she can call roll.
Cannon.
Here.
Budmetz.
Present.
O'Brien.
Here.
Veneziano.
She's ill this evening.
Oh, okay. Assessi.
Here?
Diastis.
Present.
Sonoika.
Here.
With 6 present and 1 absent, there is a quorum this evening, and therefore members who are participating on this call are reminded that these proceedings are being recorded for current and future broadcast over the city's cable television channel, as well as our other multimedia outlets. Also be advised that members of the public who are joining will be afforded the opportunity, as always, during public comment, so long as you provided your contact credentials and the subject matter for which you wanted to speak about before the deadline as noted on tonight's agenda at the top of the packet here. Also, written comments that were submitted, of course, will be entertained during this evening's meeting as well. The first order of business that we have, while we swiftly move on to things, are to approve minutes from the previous meetings. There's 2 sets of minutes to approve. The first is the June 9th, 2020 City Council meeting. By show of hand, is there a motion to approve this set of minutes? Thank you, Alderman O'Brien, for the first. Thank you, Alderman Besessi, for the second. Is there any corrections, additions, or deletions to these minutes by show of hand? Alderman Budmetz, your hand is up. Do you have a correction or addition, deletion? You are muted. I'll give you another 5 seconds. If you do have corrections, additions, or deletions to these minutes, then please feel free to address them now. Okay, so moving on, since Alderman Budmetz, I don't believe you have a comment or correction, addition, or deleting to this. Seeing none, the question is, shall these minutes be approved? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Budmetz. Where'd he go?
He may have dropped. He's actually out of town, but trying to attend remotely.
Okay. Do you want me to continue or should I wait for him to sign back on?
Yes, please continue.
Okay. O'Brien.
Yes.
Assessi.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sunoika,
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
And now we'll wait for Bud Matts. Oh, there he is.
Alderman
Nick?
Budmats, the vote's yours for the minutes. Unmute.
You have been put on hold by the host. You cannot listen or talk until the host releases the hold. You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing star.
You can mute the computer now or the phone. Alderman Budmats, can you unmute your computer and provide a vote on these minutes? Still muted. The phone is on mute, so you can just unmute the computer instead, either one.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes. So we hear your speaker. If you can mute your speaker, there you go. Mute your phone. It's bound to happen one of these meetings. It's okay.
So sorry.
Mute your phone. Alderman Budmats, mute the phone.
I did.
Okay.
All right. Are you waiting for my vote?
Yes.
Yes.
On the minutes.
I'm voting in yes in favor of accepting the minutes, if that's what I'm voting on.
Thank you. Okay, we're finished.
Okay, Alderman Budmats, I just muted you for now, but that's 6 in favor of these minutes, so they are approved. Moving on to the second set of minutes for June 23rd, 2020 City Council meeting. By show of hand, is there a motion to approve these minutes? Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka, and thank you, Alderman Diastis. Now, if everyone other than Alderman Budmats could unmute for this moment so we don't get the echo, and the clerk please call the roll.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Bessesi,
Yes.
Diastis,
Yes.
Sunoika,
Yes.
Cannon,
Yes.
Bud Matts.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 6 in favor and none opposed. These minutes are approved. Moving forward, there is no motion to deviate this evening. I do not have anything to report on the mayor's report. Are there any ward reports this evening? By show of hand. Okay, if there's nothing to report on the ward reports, then now would be the time where we open the meeting up to the public for 20 minutes. However, as of the deadline, there were no signatures on the sign-in sheet, and so we will not be addressing the public through this comment section. This brings us now beyond the pending items, as there aren't any. We move forward to the consent ordinances, and that consists of 3 items, items A through C. I'm going to pull item A, and so with that said, does any alderman wish to remove item B or C by show of hand? Alderman Diastis.
Item C.
Item C. In this case, since one has been pulled, I'm just going to do these individually at this time because that makes the most sense. And so going back to item A, in this case, I pulled it because staff is asking for a waiver of the first reading for item A, as the ordinance can be approved immediately. Is there an alderman willing to make a motion for waiving the first reading of this ordinance? Thank you, Alderman O'Brien, and thank you for the second, Alderman Sonoyka. Is there any discussion on this item? Again, it's to approve confirming and extending the state of emergency within the city of Rolling Meadows. Is there any discussion on waiving this? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be moved forward for final approval? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bessesi,
Yes.
Diastis,
Yes.
Sunoika,
Yes.
Cannon,
Yes.
Bud Matts,
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, this does move on. This ordinance is back for final approval, I should say. In this case, I'm going to just finish this final approval, then move on to B and C, if you don't mind. Again, the ordinance number 20-26, approve confirming and extending the state of emergency within the city of Rolling Meadows due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance by show of hand? Thank you, Alderman O'Brien, and thank you, Alderman Bessetti. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, the question is, shall this ordinance be adopted? Will the clerk call the roll?
Bessesi.
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Budmats.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance is adopted. This now brings us down to ordinance item B. And this ordinance, excuse me for a moment. Ordinance number 20-00 is to approve a special use to allow outdoor storage and variations for side and rear pavement setbacks at 4000 Industrial Avenue. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance? By show of hand. Thank you, Alderman Bessetti. Thank you, Alderman Diastis. For the second, Alderman Diastis, you did pull B, correct?
No, sir. Pulled C.
Pulled C. Okay, I was having trouble hearing, so never mind with that. You won't have first bite of the apple. Is there any discussion on this ordinance? Seeing none, the question is, will the clerk please call the roll?
Diastis.
Yes.
Sunoika.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Budmats.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Bessesi.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, this ordinance moved forward for second reading. Now on to ordinance C, number 20-00, approve an amendment of the Ramlin Rose Plan Development to authorize a new 70-space parking lot and associated improvements for property commonly known as the Preserve at Woodfield, located at 4700 Arbor Drive. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance? By show of hand. Thank you, Alderman Sunoika. Thank you, Alderman Bessetti. Alderman Diastis, you pulled this one. You can have the first set at discussion.
Thank you. The Stadium Club had been in my ward for many, many years. And the owner, Mr. Buffalino, had contacted me about this. Apparently, he is in negotiations with the ownership of the apartments, and they are discussing a lease of parking spots that they've had for many years. I don't know the exact details. And I know that the owner also told me that he had offered to sell them those additional parking spots. I had met with him about a month or so ago, and he walked me around the area, and basically he said, that if they're unable to come to terms, not only would the apartment complex lose, I think he said it was about 60 spots that they lease, but in addition, he owns land which allows the tenants an additional 100 or so parking spots. So I think it might be beneficial for us at this time to potentially, or not to potentially, but to delay any movement on this until both landowners were able to come to terms. As I read through this, and I don't remember it exactly, but I believe they're short on parking spots, and these 70 spots would help. But if they don't come to terms, the two ownership groups, the apartments could lose 160 spots. So I think it might be just beneficial for us as a council to postpone or to delay this, and I would make a motion that we delay this for 90 days. That should give them both plenty of time to negotiate whatever deal. I think my thoughts are if they're unable to come to terms, then the apartment ownership group would probably want to put more parking spots on the property, and that might impact what they want to do with this one section.
Thank you, Alderman Diaz. So you had made a motion to postpone this 90 days, correct?
Yes, to delay it for 90 days to give the principals time to do whatever they're going to do.
Okay. With that motion on the floor, if I could just have everybody put hands down real quick, and from the council, show of hand for someone to second Alderman Diaz's motion. Thank you, Alderman Cannon, for the second. Is there any discussion on this to postpone for 90 days to give the principals by show of hand? And now I do see Manager Crumstock, Attorney Wolf, Alderman Bessetti, and O'Brien, and then Assistant Director Joellen Charlton. So Manager Crumstock, why don't you start this parade?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Vince Raffalino is actually here at City Hall. He did not look at the agenda and saw that he needed to phone in and get the hour, but he did provide a written statement that I've sent out. I will read that just for the record. It says, "Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm here to let you know that my family is in the lease dispute with Preserves of Woodfield. We have made 2 attempts to settle the dispute with 2 separate offers. They have not responded to either due to the virus and courts being closed. We have been unable to litigate the matter until now. The end result will be the loss of a total of 160 parking spots for Preserves of Woodfield, 53 spots directly on our property, and access to an additional 103 parking spots via our property. Not only will there be the loss of parking spots, new fire lanes will need to be established. With the loss of their lease, the proposed parking addition will need to be reconfigured to accommodate fire lanes and access to the lost parking spots. Most likely, this will not be able to be accomplished without using more green space. I hope we are able to settle the issue to both parties' benefit. We felt it needed to be on the council's radar to avoid further problems. Thank you." And then again, that is from Vince Raffalino from 4025 Algonquin Road.
Thank you, Manager Crumstock. Attorney Wolf, your hand was up next in the chronology.
And maybe I can defer to Joellen Charlton on this matter. In a lot of cases with respect to zoning decisions, if the City Council delays on making a decision based upon the recommendation of the Plan Commission, that delay is deemed a denial. It's often 60 days. So I'm perusing the code right now to see if that limitation is impacting the cities, but I just want to make the City Council aware that a delay of that nature is deemed a denial, and it gives the applicant the right to review and move forward to circuit court if they don't make a decision in an appropriate amount of time.
Thank you for that. So you mentioned 60 days, and Alderman Diaz had put the recommendation for 90 days, and I don't know if he was just trying to give the additional padding and wasn't aware, like myself, about it being a 60-day window. Should we strike this motion, or what is your recommendation legally on that, since it deems it a denial?
So I think we should hear from Joellen Charlton on this matter before the council votes on this. But since the motion before the council was 90 days, Alderman Diaz could amend it, and then the City Council can vote on that. But I don't have the time limitation in front of me at this point.
Okay, thank you for that. Then let's go ahead and skip a couple seats. And Assistant Director Charlton, if you can go ahead and unmute and weigh in on this.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Wolf, if you can still look for the language that might be either in the city code or the statutes with regard to the timing. I can't really speak to that at this point, but what I wanted to advise the council of was the content of the conversation that occurred at the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Buffalino did attend the public hearing and made a lot of the same statements. I don't have what's before you, but he did notify the commission that he and the petitioner were in dispute over a lease agreement, and it has to do with the parking that's directly behind his shopping center that provides access not only to some additional parking that he's leased, but also access to some additional parking, as he mentioned, to the tune of about 100 parking spaces. When we first talked to the applicant about their proposed parking scenario, they were aware of this dispute and wanted to ensure that regardless of the outcome of that dispute, that they would be in a position to provide additional parking for the residents. So we made sure through the design that they would have proper access to the new 60-spot parking space by access that didn't rely on the access that Vince Buffalino is talking about. So although, you know, certainly the Planning and Zoning Commission was very interested in ensuring that the two parties would continue to negotiate in good faith, it was their opinion that the proposed parking met all of the standards of a plan development and could proceed with their recommendation for approval with or without the recommended satisfaction of the lease terms through the courts. And he did mention that they were trying to negotiate in good faith, but that the courts closures due to the pandemic had prevented that. So I do believe that the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation is good to move forward with this particular parking while this discussion continues through the courts.
Thank you for that. Attorney Wolf, I see your hand is still up and I'm not putting additional pressure on you to find that information, but should I continue with those who have their hands up while you're looking, or do you have the information before you?
No, you can continue, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I'm going to, I see you lowered it already, but if you have that information, just raise it again. That brings us to Alderman Bessetti. You're up here.
Okay. I'm trying to understand the purpose, the real purpose for delaying this. I don't see how one really impacts the other. It sounds like, you know, the apartments want to provide more parking for their residents, but you know, I'm not really sure. It sounds like somebody's trying to gain leverage over another party in a separate discussion here that they're having regarding their rights for those other spots. So I'll be voting yes to on the original ordinance and no on the delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bessetti. That brings us to the next in line, which is Alderman O'Brien. Floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I'm always obviously wanting if the two landowners can work it out, the better. But I think Ms. Charlton did confirm what I was wondering is based on the write-up that we received, it would be two separate things because the landowner now would have access from a new access drive for those 60. So it's those 100 plus that are in question. Is that right? If we do separate it as two, I'm for it, and maybe Mr. Mayor, maybe it's a 45-day delay. And we'll defer to Attorney Wolf on that because that'd be great if they could work it out themselves. But it is two separate things, right? Joe Ellen is where the new access road, as in our packet, would allow them access to the 60 spaces, just not the 100 that are in question. I just wanted to confirm that's how I understood your answer.
That is correct, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien. That brings us to Alderman Bud Matz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mr. Bessetti said, I feel like we're being used as leverage to help push a decision from one business owner to another. And if this business owner's it being the preserves at Woodfield, if they have the legal right and if have an approval to, they're within the confines as defined by our agreement to put a parking lot in, and they're not asking for any special exceptions, then I think we're obligated to give it to them because they've met the requirements. And just the fact that a neighboring business wants to, to enter a lease dispute, and it feels to me like unrelated red herring, and it really has nothing to do with our approval of this thing. They're entitled to the approval. They're not. There's nothing special. It's just something that they should get because it's been gone through our process, and I'll be voting for it and against any delays in providing it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alderman Budmetz. Alderman Diastis, I see your hand is up here on the discussion for the delay.
Yes, thank you. I truly, there is no ulterior motive. There's no gaining leverage or anything else that the other aldermen spoke of. I just thought that it would probably help because the way it was explained to me, yes, they will be able to get the new parking spots, but they could be losing the lease. The amount of spots they're getting, the new spots will offset the amount of lease spots they get. But if they're not able to work out some kind of an agreement with their neighbor, then they could potentially lose 100 more. So I'm happy to change it from 90 to 60 days. I just wanted to give the parties time to have a conversation. I don't have a problem with the new 70 spots. I just wanted to give them ample time to try to negotiate something else. So I would change my motion from 90 days to 60 days so that they don't automatically get denied. I change it to 45 days. That's fine. I just want to give the parties some time to have a conversation because I don't want to be having residents say now they can't park in front of their building because they don't have an easement to get through somebody else's land. I just thought it would be easier for the two parties to negotiate this. And I know the COVID and the courts being closed has all added to this. So I thought it might be, prudent for us to delay it for, I'm fine with 60, I'm fine with 45 days, whatever the law would allow. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Diastis. I'm going to continue with those who have their hands up, and it leaves off with Alderman Sonoyka. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as these properties that have been discussed today are in my ward, in the 7th Ward, as of this date, I represent the residents that live at the Preserve of Woodfield, and at a previous council decision, we voted to remove street parking with the assumption that additional parking would be built to compensate for that loss. And that was a decision that was supported by our police chief and other city staff. And I received no response from residents regarding the loss of that street parking. I do appreciate the goodwill of Mr. Buffalino for also meeting with me today regarding this issue. And I hope that he will continue throughout these negotiations to continue his goodwill and hopefully come to a resolution where he can continue to lease those parking spaces, as it's a benefit to my residents to have the spaces that they need. So per our packet, even with the additional 70 spaces, we're still at about 1.6 spaces per dwelling unit. And so regardless of what happens with Mr. Buffalino's pending litigation with the Preserve at Woodfield management, we still are, it is still in the best interest of the residents and the public good to approve the 70 parking spaces without delay. So I will be voting no to any delay today, and I will be voting in favor of the parking lot because it's going to benefit our residents the most.
Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Attorney Wolf, have you had an opportunity to find how to better define this window of time for Alderman Diastis's motion?
So I'm not finding any specified time period as identified by the city code. But I am now looking at the statute to see if there is a defined time period for which the council has to make the determination. My recommendation is that since this is first reading, maybe the council hold off on postponing this matter until second reading, at which time I can advise the council if there is a specific duration of time that's mandated by the statute or the city code, and just get some further research completed.
Thank you, Attorney Wolf. That does make sense, given this is the first reading, that while this motion's on the floor, we just vote it down and vote on the original, and we still have up until the second reading to determine if there needs to be council action to push this out for a period of time, or just continue procedurally as we are. So with that, are there any further matters to discuss on this motion to push it out? And Alderman Diaz, I hope you're okay with me, and you mentioned you're okay with amending from 90 to 60. And so just the vote here is to delay this, which is what you were hoping for in good faith so they could work it out, to delay it for 60 days, or do you want to stick with your 90?
No, 60 is fine. I mean, I don't want this to automatically die. I just was trying to give the two parties an opportunity to have a conversation, since the courts were closed, and it'll give everybody else an opportunity to go out there and take a look, because not only will they lose the lease space if they can't work out something, they'll lose 100+ more spots. So that the percentage is going to go down from 1.6 to probably 1.3. But yeah, I'm good with 60 days.
Okay, so then the vote right now that the council should vote upon is to delay this for 60 days. Again, this is first reading only, so maybe that's not necessary. But will the clerk please call, wait, you know what? Alderman Sunoika, your hand is up. You are entitled to 2 times. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify that when we're talking about parking spaces disappearing as a result of this lease not being renewed, or whatever result happens from this litigation, then that's the responsibility of the preserve at Woodfield to come back to us and try to be compliant with our code. That's not on, that would not be on the other party, correct?
Is that a question, that latter
Yes,
half?
that's a question to staff, whoever can answer that.
Alternate Slimonoika, this is Assistant Director Charlton. The reduction in parking is true. I know that there is access to additional parking spaces that would not be available if the lease were not successfully negotiated and the access to those parking spaces were cut off. During the public hearing, the applicant testified that there are other locations within the development that additional parking could be provided. And while the Planning and Zoning Commission was amenable to considering those future expansions for parking, they did talk a little bit about the continued loss of green space. So there will be a measure of looking at the disparity between providing additional parking and making sure that there's still adequate green space. Obviously, the best scenario for all involved would be the successful negotiation of this lease, as you indicated in your earlier statements. So I think that's the message the Planning and Zoning Commission left with both parties, and both parties agreed that they would try to do that as soon as the courts allowed. But again, the owner of the apartment complex does have additional alternatives that don't involve this property.
Thank you, Assistant Director. So then my follow-up to that would be, regardless of the outcome of that litigation, what could end up, ultimately, we would still want this parking lot created for the benefit of the residents. And if we need additional parking after we have knowledge of the result of that pending litigation, then the petitioner can come back to us with that knowledge. Because right now we're dealing with hypotheticals, and so I don't think it's prudent for the council to make a decision to delay based off of that hypothetical. And given that it wouldn't be whether or not we would build this parking lot. It's whether or not we would build this parking lot and then some. So that's all that I wanted to clarify at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Okay, so we're at the point of the vote for this motion here to postpone this decision for 60 days. Will the clerk please call the roll on this?
Sunoika,
No.
Cannon,
Yes.
Budmats,
No.
O'Brien,
No.
Bessesi,
No.
Diastis.
Yes.
That's 2 in favor and 4 opposed. The motion to push this out 60 days does not take effect. This brings us back to the original ordinance of first reading. Any additional discussion on this first reading of this item by show of hand? Seeing none, the question is, shall the ordinance be moved forward to second reading? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Cannon,
Yes.
Budmats,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Bessesi,
Yes.
Diastis,
No.
Sunoika.
Yes.
With 5 in favor and 1 opposed, this ordinance does move forward to second reading. This now brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is new business. And it's the motion to approve the payment of bills on warrant for July 14th, 2020. By show of hand, is there a motion to approve the warrant? Thank you, Alderman O'Brien, and thank you, Alderman Sonoyka, for the second. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none. The question is, shall the warrant be approved, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Budmats,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Bessesi,
Yes.
Diastis,
Yes.
Sunoika,
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, the warrant is approved. This now moves us on to the consent resolutions. It consists of 4 items, items E through H. By show of hand, does any alderman wish to remove an item or items from the consent agenda for resolutions? Alderman Diastis. You're muted.
E and F.
Okay, E is in elephant and F is in Frank.
Correct.
Okay. Does any other alderman wish to remove any other item? Alderman Diastis, I'm going to lower your hand at the moment. Okay, so then the chair declares it in order for one motion to consider the 2 resolutions now in one motion without debate. Is there such a motion by show of hand? Alderman Bessesi has made the first, and thank you, Alderman Sonoyka, for the second. So this brings us down to G. Resolution number 20-R-69 is to award a contract to provide engineering services to conduct an American Water Infrastructure Act Risk and Resilience Assessment and Emergency Response Plan for the city's water system. Next, line item H, which is resolution number 20-R-70, and that's to authorize a contract for the purchase of a 2020 refuse truck. It's a replacement of Rolling Meadows 305 T334, a 2012 Peterbilt McNeelius. The question is, shall the 2 resolutions be adopted? Will the clerk please call the roll?
O'Brien,
Yes.
Bessesi,
Yes.
Diastis,
Yes.
Sunoika,
Yes.
Cannon,
Yes.
Budmats.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, the resolutions are adopted. This brings us back up to the first line item E, resolution number 20-R-67 is to approve the local public agency agreement for federal participation with Illinois Department of Transportation for proposed Quinton Road bike path project. It's from Euclid Avenue to Hartung Road, and it consists of engineering, a right-of-way acquisition, construction and construction engineering. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution? Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka for the first. Thank you, Alderman Bessetti for the second. And Alderman Diastis, you pulled this, so you can have the first bite at the discussion here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just, when I was reviewing this, it just seemed to me that it's $260,000 to do this, and I just wanted to be able to vote independently on either for or against this and the next one, because it seems like it's a lot of money to be spending at this time for a bike path that I'm not sure if it's quite a mile or a mile and a half long, couple miles maybe. It just seemed like a lot of money. And I know we're getting help from the feds, which is always nice, but it's still $260,000. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Diastis, for that. Is there any further discussion on this line item E, resolution number 20-R67? Alderman Sonoyka?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a member of the Northwest Municipal Conference Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, as well as a resident of this city, this is part of a larger plan over a couple of years. I'm also part of the Capital Improvements Committee here at the city, as is Alderman Diastis, so it surprises me that he appears to be questioning the value of increasing complete streets for our main roadways, specifically this one that's mentioned here, where we have already received federal backing at an 80-20 split. And because engineering, phase one engineering has already been completed and we've already paid for it. So this is a bike path and a pedestrian way that specifically will connect one half of the city towards a path that connects to Harper College, as well as other industrial and commercial areas to the greater Northwest suburbs. So I'll be voting in favor of this. We have it planned for many years in order to be able to ensure that these are costs that the city is more than ready to expend on this particular item. Did staff also want to speak to this item as well, either Director Horn or Assistant Director Charlton?
Mayor, I don't have anything to add at this time.
Okay, thank you. It was an open invitation, and that's quite all right. Assistant Director Charlton, anything to provide us in the way of feedback?
No, Mayor, no additional feedback.
Okay, thank you. From the council, any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, the question is, shall the resolution be adopted? So will the clerk please call the roll? Judy?
I wasn't out, sorry.
That's okay.
Yes. My
Yes.
first time. Diastis,
No.
Sonoyka,
Yes.
Cannon,
Yes, for me.
Budmats,
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
That's 5 in favor and 1 opposed. This resolution is adopted. This brings us now to line item F, resolution number 20-R-68, and that's to award a contract for phase 2 design engineering right-of-way acquisition services for the Quinton Road Bike Path project. Again, Euclid Avenue to Hartung Road. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution? Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka, for the first. Thank you, Alderman Bessetti, for the second. Again, Alderman Diastis, you pulled this, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, nothing more to say.
Okay, thank you. Anything further from any other member of the council? Alderman Cannon, I see your hand is up. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if, and I apologize because I probably should have called staff today. I was just wondering if they could give us some more information of where they would need the land acquisition. I'm a little bit confused by that, but I'm sure they can give me a good answer.
Yes, Mayor, I can if I can.
Proceed.
Thank you. There is particularly down by Hartung Road, properties along that area, there is very slight encroachments that will be required. Many of the encroachments, I think there are 11 total, and 4 to 6 we believe are significant enough to enter into negotiations with property owners. I think one of them is, in addition, one of them is the Jawa water station, which we hope to get administratively. Again, they're just very small along the planned unit developments on Hartung Drive, excuse me.
Thank you, Director Horn. Alderman Cannon, anything further?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you. That's all I needed. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Diastis, I saw your hand shoot up. Maybe not, though.
No.
Okay. Without any further discussion then on this item, the question is, shall the resolution be adopted? And will the clerk please call the roll?
Bessesi,
Yes.
Diastis,
No.
Sunoika,
Yes.
Cannon,
Yes.
Bud Matts,
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Again, with 5 in favor and 1 opposed, this resolution is adopted. As we scroll here, bear with my monitor. This brings the council to other business and reports. There are no mayor's appointment this evening, nor do I have a proclamation of any sort. Does the city clerk have anything to report?
No, not tonight.
Thank you. This then brings us to city staff reports. And just a reminder, there are no discussions during these staff reports. And the first item here is the community items of interest. And so with this, I'll defer to Manager Crumstock.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I have a few to add, but the first one that we do want to thank everybody who donated blood on Thursday, June 25th here at City Hall. We do have another one scheduled for Thursday, August 27th, because of the real need that's necessary for blood at this point in time, especially with COVID-19 happening. This Thursday, August 27th one will happen again here at City Hall in the council chambers between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. And again, due to the need for social distancing, appointments are really needed for this event. You may schedule by contacting by talent at 877-258-4825. Wearing a face mask or a covering is required. Walk-ins are only going to be allowed and accommodated if they're able to accommodate from City Hall if someone misses or there's able to go on. My talent will also be conducting COVID-19 antibody testing for all those individuals who complete the donation process during the blood drive. We obviously want to mention that if you missed the June 27th City Market, the next one is this Saturday, July 18th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Community Church, 2720 Kirchhoff Road. Face coverings and one-way travel and social distancing will be part of this event. We're trying a different flow from the last one. There will be a tent for the mayor and city council at this event, as discussed before. And then for this market, the city will be conducting a food drive. So if you have food to donate, we will have a collection area for that too. Friendly reminders, we've been saying since this all started, please do not flush any type of wipes down the toilet. And again, please make sure what you're putting down the stream. We also want to reiterate what we've been talking about for most of 2020. The census is going on. The Us Census Survey, hopefully most people have responded. If you have not, our response rate right now is at 75.6. It's outpacing the state, which is at 66.7, or Cook County, which is 61.5, and that was as of July 7th. And again, it's very important for individuals to complete the census throughout Rolling Meadows and obviously Cook County and the state of Illinois. If you need information, please come to the market this Saturday. We will have our tablet and actually able to help you to complete that if you have not done that too. We want to remind people that tomorrow is the IRS's new federal income tax and the state income tax filing date. This was an extension that was given back from the April date, so we do hope everybody is compliant with that one. The second installment of the Cook County property taxes are out, and property owners have until October 1st to pay without a late change, and that second installment is due August 3rd. So the Cook County allowed back in April, they passed an ordinance that allowed it, even though it's due August 3rd, You have until October 1st to pay without a penalty, or late charges, I should say. But please, important that people watch that date and make sure that if you weren't filing it at the right time, at least that's coming out there. Another friendly reminder for residents and businesses, if you're having a hard time paying your utility bill or food and beverage payments, please contact finance at 847-394-8500 or by email at finance@cityrm.org, and they may be able to place you on a payment plan. We also keep on reiterating, please shop, dine, and order in Rolling Meadows is important. It is most important and more important than ever now for our small boxes, big boxes, restaurants, small businesses, all the mom and pops, and really is significant coming back out there. One of the items that is not on the sheets before you is actually regarding Public Works. A mailing will be distributed soon. They will provide notice that will require all water customers, residents, and businesses to participate in the city's cross-connection control survey. The online survey is required by the IEPA every 2 years, and for public water, the survey helps to identify potential cross-connection that may exist within the city's water system. The online survey portal can be found at www.backflow.com/Rolling Meadows. Residents and business owners participate is appreciated. We do want to mention that ComEd and NICOR are saying that there are people out there trying to scam residents. Please do not give out your information specifically. You know, NICOR and ComEd have your accounts. They don't need any information from you. So please be careful of any scams. Regarding that too, we also want to remind residents, please lock your vehicles and your garage doors. We know that people are doing stay at home, but at the same point in time, we do have people who have open doors and open garages that it's an opportunity for folks. And then we do want to mention to people that we do have a city code that talks about signs in the parkways, and we are back into enforcement on that. And then the last item is we do have one item that Mr. Alan Gabe brought up from Chapman Court about flooding, and Public Works will get back to him on that I saw. With that, those are items of interest that we have at this point in time.
Thank you, Manager Crumstock. Moving on to the second item here, which is the Traffic Review Committee report for June 2020. I'm going to hand it over to Director Horn. Director Horn, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor. Not a lot to report this month. Of note, we did install a hospital sign to direct emergency vehicles to the hospital off Kirchhoff Road. Other than that, we're still working on a few items, hopefully getting some movement on an item that's been on there a long time. So other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions the council has, but the report is complete.
Thank you, Director Horn. This now brings us to the third item on the list, which is the July 21st, 2020 Committee of the Whole draft agenda. And for this, we circle back to Manager Crumstock. Thank
you very much, Mayor and City Council. We're actually going to have 6 items. We'll have a G1 discussion. This is hopefully, I'm saying as staff, hopefully the last conversation that we have on this, but it deals with the 11, 13, 15. What other items you would like to talk about? Specifically what makes a gaming cafe and that. Parkway signs relief under December 2020, that was Alderman Cannon. He brought that up, and staff will have some other ideas with that. We do have return of the business assistance program that is sort of based on the temporary family assistance. Liquor license, not liquor license extension, we're sort of doing one item with that item. And then pedestrian light fixture changes, that's throughout Kirchhoff Road. Those are the bulb lights that you see. And then a discussion about old Public Works that we have to talk about. So it's 6 items, not 7 that are on the list at this point in time.
Thanks, Manager Crumstock. And then bringing us to the following week of July 28th at the City Council, you have a draft agenda to present for us this evening.
Sure thing. We do have a meeting, as the Mayor stated. We'll have second readings from the items that were up today. So obviously the storage and variation for the side and rear pavement setbacks for 4000 Industrial Avenue. And the City Council will be seeing a 6B on that too. But there's also an amendment to the plan development regarding 4700 Arbor Drive that we just talked about with the 70 spaces. Those are all second readings. Then for consent ordinances, we'll have, again, the typical COVID-19 ordinance that we've been presenting before the City Council. As discussed at the last Committee of the Whole meeting, the CDD fee schedule revisions will be up for first reading. Then hopefully from our G1 discussions that we had at the Committee of the Whole meeting, we should hopefully have amended liquor license video gaming ordinance. That's for first reading, amending our zoning code regarding cannabis. That's first reading, and amending the zoning code for liquor license also on first reading. Pay some bills. Then we have 2 6Bs that are coming up for, and those were both at the Economic Development Committee meeting, and obviously a request is for the council members who sit on EDC to also do that update. But the first one is a 6B classification for 900 Carnegie Street, and then it's 980 Carnegie Street. Per the request from the county to the petitioner, it's 2 different resolutions, but it's around the same property that we have. They hope to put in about $1 to $2 million worth of work into this property that has obviously been there for a period of time. That's the old Fuji Hunt property, if anybody's trying to figure out where that location is. And then we have a resolution that for 6B classification incentive for 4,000 industrial. That's a small underground utility company. Then we have amend plat and consolidation for 4280 Kirchhoff Road and 4290 Kirchhoff Road. And then we have an emergency siren relocation. That is the actual siren that is sitting on old fire station 15 that we need to relocate. It's going to go into right by the community garden where the park district shed is, where that area. So it's crossing the street if you want to consider that too, but it still has the full coverage where the old siren was. And then obviously we'll do community items of interest, the 2020 new business. We'll have the June 2020 financials where we sit at this point in time. And again, that's the update that we've been talking about. And per request from the mayor, we'll have one new pie chart or a different kind of pie chart for one item that we're discussing. And then the new billing system, we just want to start talking about that, and that's just a staff report. It does go live 8/1/2020. The changeover worked very well. It obviously took some time last week. That's why we were closed for a period of time. And then we have personnel. So that is our last meeting as of right now, what's being scheduled.
Thanks for providing that forecast, Manager Crumstock. This brings us now to the section of matters not on the agenda. By show of hand, are there any matters not on the agenda? I see Alderman Budmats and Alderman O'Brien. So Alderman Budmats, take it away, and Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So tonight, we've heard from Mr. Vince Buffalino and as well as Mr. Gabe, who both wanted to address the council, and both apparently went to City Hall, assuming that they'd be able to address us. And because they were at City Hall but didn't address us or give us 1 hour's notice prior to the meeting starting, that they weren't able to do so. So perhaps we need to do something to do a better job of getting the information out as far as if you wish to participate in the meeting, that so maybe there's a sign that needs to go up at City Hall, something that lets people know that for the length of time that the COVID problem is going to be affecting our ability to freely meet and safely meet, that we should make sure that there are signs that let people know that they would not be able to just walk into City Hall like usual and participate in the City Council meeting, and that we want to help them in order to be able to still let their voices be heard about the matters that are important to them. In my statement.
Thank you, Alderman Budmats. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 real quickly. As Manager Crumstock alluded to. On behalf of Alderman Venetiano being ill this evening, I did want to go ahead and provide a quick update from the last Economic Development Committee meeting. It was mine and Alderman Venetiano's first one, but that's part of the role the mayor asked us to do, was be that liaison and provide a report back to our fellow council members at the next meeting. So I'm checking my notes here as well from that meeting. It was great. Mayor Gallo joined us and welcomed. That was the first part of the meeting, is there were a lot of new members, so it was a welcome and introduction to the committee members. We did award a lending company, a title company, for their Next Level Northwest, which I'm interested in getting additional information from city staff on as we move forward. But there was a recognition for a graduate of the Next Level Northwest provided. As Manager Krumspach talked about on our upcoming agenda meetings, is there were 2 6B requests, not to repeat the details on those. And then we did talk about new businesses that came into town. And then this was a great thing to see too. The committee divides up new businesses, not just license transfers or renewals, but then since the committee hadn't been together since March based on the pandemic, is there were a good amount of new businesses. So a couple of committee members divided them up, and they were going to call Welcome Them Community as the Economic Development Community. We did talk about goals, not in detail, but that one of our future agenda topics will be discussing goals of the committee for the remainder of 2020 and 2021. And then one item I thought that would be of all of our interests is, while it was not talked about at the meeting based on timing, because we preceded the Planning and Zoning Commission, there was a write-up in the materials that the gaming terminal operator for Eclectic submitted an initial inquiry just about potential gaming. I know that's on all of our radar screens. That clearly would be an accessory because that's a restaurant. Again, there was no conversation at EDC about that. It was in the printed materials. So just so that all we know as we go into future meetings, I actually don't know in full transparency when we talk about what it means, if it was a call to the city, if it was just an inquiry to the owner, but there was the gaming terminal operator showed some potential interest in gaming. And that was the update on EDC. The second item I had, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, do we open this up? Since the first time we're doing it, does anybody have questions, I guess, from fellow council members on the EDC meeting? Alderman Venetiano and I were going to flip-flop back and forth who provided the update. She was going to take this one, but I grabbed my notes as soon as I heard Mayor Gallo say she was ill this evening.
Thank you.
So
you know what?
I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I do see Alderman Sonoyka's hand up, and I'm not sure if it's a question for EDC or additional matters not on the agenda. Alderman Sonoyka?
This is in direct response to Alderman O'Brien's recap for us. I think that this is a fantastic idea, most that he's giving this update to us as a council, but also because we keep such meticulous meeting notes thanks to our deputy city clerk. And as a result, the high-level important aspects of those meeting notes then will be more accessible to the city and to the residents, since they are, for those who are accessing meeting notes or watching recordings of our city council meetings on YouTube or on the city website, then this is an opportunity for them to know the important work that's being done in our committees in addition to the city council. So for our other committees, I would appreciate a similar high-level update in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. And to that point, Alderman Sonoyka and O'Brien, it is my full intention that our committees and commissions do provide us a regular update in a cadence that's more in line with what we haven't seen before, in order to keep the council more informed as to all that they do through the exercises they go through. And with that, Alderman O'Brien, I believe you still have another item.
I do, Mr. Mayor, and I wish it was as easy as the first one I gave. It's actually similar to what Alderman Budmatz brought up. I know we talked last time about brief discussion about going back to in-person meetings. I'd like to circle back to that because I know you talked about a blended approach, and I personally am comfortable being back in person. We moved to phase 4. I attended EDC as yourself allowed you to before a prior commitment that you had. I can't speak for Alderman Venetiano because she's not on the phone, but she was also in attendance there. I just wanted to circle back on that. Is based on tonight too, we, as Alderman Budmatz pointed out, 2 residents came to council chambers thinking they'd be able to address us. So I know your thought earlier was obviously going with the majority of council. People have personal reasons for potentially not being there, predisposed as well, or caretaking of other family members, completely understand. I just wanted to see if we could potentially get some type of closure to that for your potential blended approach. For those of us that might be comfortable being in staff, I don't even know how that would work. I know we've got the technology to do that now. It might be for Wasim and staff that we couldn't do it till August because we've got to do some testing. But I'd like to see us kind of start leading by example since other committees are back out there. Just get a feel for the group.
So to that point, for starters, what changed my mind and put us back in this virtual meeting is when I attended the Economic Development Committee meeting, I saw the members having face masks on, but I saw the attendees, the audience, sitting shoulder to shoulder without face masks on. And maybe they put them on after I left, but we have a clear sign at the front door that says face coverings must be worn. And just because the meeting didn't start yet, doesn't mean the face mask can't be on, right? And until I'm fully aware that that is being obeyed at all times, I don't want to put the council, I don't want to put staff, even though they don't have a choice because they work in that environment, or the risk of community members at further risk by having looser restrictions or maybe not just being as vigilant and not even knowing that some members or attendees are not wearing face covering. To a blended approach, it won't work to the extent that we think it will. If you were to sit at the dais, Alderman O'Brien, the council gets the audio pumped in through the speakers. And if we were to have a bridge that connected some who were physically present and some who were virtually absent and at their own home or elsewhere, anytime you were to speak at the dais, that reverberation from the delayed effect in the microphone would be picked up because of the speakers that are pumping out somebody else's audio. Two, if we're going to have a blended approach, it still has to completely exist on a digital platform, whether it's Zoom or WebEx, it doesn't matter, but a blended approach still requires entire 100% commitment on a digital platform. So we might as well just be distant as a result. Staff is present at City Hall to advise these individuals. Well, Mr. Gabe was putting his comments out publicly. I did address them to him privately and let him know that staff would be reaching out. I also heard through Manager Crumstock that Public Works is going to be reaching out. So I think they're getting a great deal of care that sometimes often otherwise wouldn't. I do know it's better to do things physically present because it's just easier, right? This does come with its drawbacks. We've had a series of meetings for a number of months, and I can count on one hand, how many glitches we've had. And I'd rather have a technical glitch than I would an infection of some sort. And again, I don't want to be the cause of somebody else's infection or the transmission of that. I don't think there's any rush. There's 37 states currently that are going up in COVID. I don't want to be part of us receding in any progress that we've made. And furthermore, it's just right now, the confidence that I had by seeing attendees of a meeting not wearing face masks before the meeting started was a bit shocking and concerning to me. And that's
Well,
why
because Mr. Mayor, you were there prior to myself. I don't recall seeing them without their mask, and it's just odd. I mean, it's just personal feeling. That's why I wanted to bring up. Handful of us were at the city market. We all do. We're stressing here to go out, start supporting local businesses, yet we're not as a council. But I mean, so that's why I just wanted to bring it up since you said you would leave it to the council, but obviously that's your right as the mayor to do. So obviously I'll respect that or anything. I just kind of feel it's being funny. We go out to dinner, we say support local businesses. We all have to run to the Jewel. And again, I was not there as early as you were for the meeting, so I didn't see that. I'm sure we could work with staff where they put a police officer that's normally in the room with us at the door, making sure people do have it. I think it's just funny that we're saying support, so yet we're not in person for residents other than the city market, which was a meet and greet that a handful of us were able to attend.
Yeah, I can respect that. And it's not a time for discussion, of course, but I don't eat out. I go out when it's essential and necessary, and it's very infrequent. But these are the parameters I put around my family and my loved ones because this is what we need to do for our household. And I don't want to impress my opinions on others. And as a result, I would rather err on the side of caution.
And that's why I thought your blended approach was an idea, but it sounds like technology-wise, it may not be. And that's why I would need to defer to Hasim and Kelly.
It'll be a cluster. That will be a
That's
cluster.
why I wanted to respect everybody's is they could be in person or at home, but it sounds like that may not be possible, but I would need to defer to our IT experts on that because I'm certainly not that.
it still has to exist on a digital platform as a blended approach. And at that point, it's 100% existent and reliant on that digital approach. And so trust me, it will be a nightmare. But anyway, further matters not on the agenda at this time. Alderman Sonoyka, your hand is raised. Maybe not. Alderman Bessetti.
Sorry, I tried to hit the mute button.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
it's okay.
I wanted to just state my support for continuing virtual meetings as necessary. I know at a previous meeting I stated that it's helpful for staff because they don't have to travel. We have a lot of staff that actually don't live within the city of Rolling Meadows, and we go late. Even now, this was a light agenda item, and we're probably not going to get out until maybe 9:30 with the closed session, being optimistic. And so while I don't want to give residents the impression that we're being hypocritical here, because I think that's kind of what Alderman O'Brien was getting to. And I want to emphasize that the circumstances are quite different. If I could take a jump drive and stick it in my computer and download food for myself, then that is what I would do. But I have to go to the grocery store because I have to physically get food. And so that's a necessity. And so if we can continue to provide a service where that's not necessary, and we even have some advantages that are involved with it, then I think that we should continue in virtual until circumstances change. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Quick side note, we've had over 35 to 50 attendees on non-controversial items alone, which is far greater than we've had physical meetings. Alderman Bessetti, your hand is up.
I was going to basically state that I am very much in favor of continuing to have our meetings virtually. I do believe we have, outside of myself, other members that may be somewhat compromised. And until I would think the simple test, really simple, is when we can lift the state of emergency, then we can meet. Period. Either that or we need to COVID test everybody coming in the door with at least the same things that every single workplace is doing with temperature checks and all of that type of stuff. Because we cannot control the amount of people that will be in the building at one time. I also worry about closed session, whether we be doing that in the council chambers or in our normal closed session area. So that's basically it. I would think it's a very simple test. If we think it's good enough to start meeting and potentially have a lot of people in the building for a meeting, then I think we're ready to lift the state of emergency. So a simple test is that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Bessetti. Are there other matters not on the agenda? Alderman Diastis, I do see your hand is up.
I just want to weigh in on this and say that I agree with Alderman O'Brien, period. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further matters not on the agenda? And if not, you'll see that there is another item for a closed session. It's personnel under the 5 ILCS 120-2C1 of the Illinois Open Meeting Act. There is the request to go into this closed session. It does, of course, require a motion and a roll call vote. So with that, do I have a motion? Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Is there a second? I see Alderman O'Brien with the second, which has been made. Is there any discussion about going into closed session for this item at this time? If not, will the clerk please call the roll?
Diastis.
Yes.
Sonoyka.
Yes.
Cannon.
Yes.
Budmats.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Bessetti.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and unopposed, we will enter closed session for that item. There's also another one which you don't see on the list, but it's a pending litigation item. It's a motion to find that litigation or certain matters involving the city, improbable and imminent, go into closed session to find more information on this. Do I have a motion to enter into closed session for this issue? Thank you, Alderman Sonoyka. Thank you, Alderman Bessetti. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, will the clerk please call roll?
Sunoika,
Yes.
Cannon,
Yes.
Budmats,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Bessesi,
Yes.
Diastis.
Yes.
With 6 in favor and none opposed, we will now also enter into closed session for this item. The audience and press should be advised that we do not anticipate taking further action upon returning to open session. Unless we don't make the progress we need in closed session, then we will return to open session and discuss the item on matters not on the agenda. So with that, good evening, council. Please join me on the other line for closed session at this time.